Hello Superhar family and friends. So for this episode of Painting Legends, I'm going to tell some stories people have told of mermaid encounters. So mermaids are a fascinating part of global folklore, appearing in myths and legends from cultures spanning the globe. These aquatic beings often portrayed as having the upper body of a human and the lower body of a fish. They are believed to inhabit oceans, rivers, and lakes. While mermaids appear in myths from Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas, some of the most captivating tales come from the explorers of the New World. These are some early stories. So Christopher Columbus famously reported sightings of mermaids during his 1493 voyage through the Caribbean. In his journal, he described seeing 3 mermaid-like creatures rising from the sea. Though he noted they were not as beautiful as often depicted in stories, these mermaids were likely manatees, but the account fueled widespread curiosity about the mysterious beings of the sea. Another prominent figure, the pirate Blackbeard, also left a mark on mermaid lore. The logbook of his voyages reveals that Blackbeard instructed his crew to avoid certain charted waters, which he believed to be enchanted. According to Blackbeard and his men, they had encountered merfolk in these areas, inspiring both fear and wonder among sailors. These enchanted regions were avoided for fear that the creatures might lure them to disaster. So interestingly, these stories didn't limit mermaids to the open ocean. Some legends, particularly in the Americas, suggest that mermaids could travel inland via rivers and streams. This mobility made them even more elusive and mysterious, offering the chance for humans to spot them in unexpected places. Across centuries, the mermaid has remained a symbol of both beauty and danger, representing the mysterious power of the sea. Whether used as a warning or a source of intrigue, tales of mermaids continue to capture the imagination of people today. There was an incident at Gwoki Dam in Zimbabwe in 2012. It's one of the more unusual modern mermaid sightings, and it reflects a deep-rooted belief in water spirits or mermaids known as Nijunzu in local Shona folklore. Hopefully I said that right. These entities are often described as pale-skinned human-like creatures with fishtails similar to mermaids in Western mythology. In this case, workers tasked with installing water pumps at the dam reported seeing such creatures. Leading to widespread fear, the workers described encountering pale-skinned humans with fishtails rising from the water, which terrified them so much that they refused to continue working. As a result, local authorities were forced to halt the project until traditional rites could be performed to appease the supposed water spirits. So in Zimbabwean culture, these beings are believed to have the ability to bring good fortune, but also to cause harm if disrespected. It's said that they can abduct people or retaliate if their territory is disturbed. After the workers' reports, tribal elders were called to perform rituals to calm the spirits, a practice reflecting the strong belief in these water deities in rural communities. So this next story happened in Florida. A woman named Janine had an encounter when she was 14. She and her family went on a trip to the beach in Florida. Since she didn't know how to swim, she brought a float with her for safety. Her friend, a year older, suggested that they swim farther out into the ocean, even though she wasn't confident about it. But she joined her friend anyway, trusting that her float would keep her safe. As they ventured further, an uneasy feeling crept in. and Janine sensed something bad might happen. She urged her friend to return to the shore, but her friend insisted everything was fine. Moments later, her worst fear came true. She fell off the float. Without knowing how or why, struggling underwater, fear overwhelmed her as she thought she might drown. She closed her eyes, thinking of her family. Just then, something grabbed her wrist. She assumed it was her friend coming to help, but was shocked to see a terrifying, human-like creature in front of her. The figure was pale, emaciated, with the tail of a fish. Paralyzed with fear, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The creature pulled her up, placing her back on the float, and vanished before she could process what had happened. Her friend, confused, asked what happened, but she simply said that she had fallen off. The next day, she decided to tell her friend the truth about the strange encounter. Surprisingly, her friend believed her story, having seen something dart away just after she came back to the surface. Even years later, Janine sometimes wonders if it had been a bad dream, but the vividness of the memory makes her believe it really happened. The next story happened in Cocoa Beach. In 1999, while snorkeling in Cocoa Beach, Jim experienced something that would leave a lasting impression on him. He felt a bump, initially assuming it was a shark, but when he turned, he saw something entirely unexpected. A mermaid tail, just as one might imagine from folklore. Though he only had a view from behind, he could still make out arms and hands, but the head remained out of sight. What captivated him the most were the vibrant colors of the tail, shifting and shimmering as it moved through the water, creating a mesmerizing display. The encounter felt surreal, and he couldn't shake the question, why him? Why had he been chosen to witness such an extraordinary sight? The experience changed him forever, a moment of awe he would never forget. The next story, this woman tells her grandfather's unusual encounter with what he thinks was a mermaid. Growing up in Singapore, her grandfather once traveled to Malaysia as a young boy, around the age of 7 or 8, and went swimming in the ocean with his cousins. During the swim, he noticed a large splash in the water, and out of curiosity, swam closer to investigate. At first, he thought it might be a fish, but as he approached the disturbance, he blacked out. The rest of the story comes from his cousin's perspective. His cousin recalled seeing a figure resembling a woman seemingly dragging him further out into the sea. Alarmed, the cousin swam towards them, and for some unknown reason, the creature appeared startled and fled, leaving his cousin behind. The cousin managed to bring him back to shore safely. Years later, through hypnosis, her grandfather revealed that just before blacking out, he had seen a woman with a tail swimming toward him. It remains a mysterious event, one that left the family wondering why the creature reacted the way it did. So this next story, this man tells about mermaids seen near the Santa Monica Pier. He says it might sound unbelievable, but they actually saw around 20 of them. He says at first there was just one. It was lying on the beach, and from a distance we thought it might be a dog. But as the waves came in, the creature jumped into the water and suddenly more of them appeared. Though they kept their distance, interestingly they seemed to avoid the moonlight, almost as if they were trying to stay hidden from view or prevent photos from being taken. They moved in a line, almost like soldiers, and he got the impression that they were admiring the lights on the pier from afar, It was an incredible, surreal event that he'll never forget. So this next story took place in the late 1980s in Malaysia. This man reflects on the event that he vividly recalled encountering a mermaid who he believes saved his life. He had been playing alone on the beach, building a sandcastle, when a large wave unexpectedly pulled him into the water. While struggling, he saw the silhouette of a woman with long, curly hair swimming toward him. As she approached him, he realized she wasn't an ordinary woman. She had a fishtail instead of legs. She grabbed him with one hand, and he clung to her as she swiftly brought him back to shore. He was left gasping for air, his parents unaware of the near-drowning incident. He didn't feel any pain, only relief, and assumed she had saved him. Although her face is now a blur in his memory, he distinctively remembers her long bright hair, her human-like upper body, and her extraordinary speed. To this day, he doesn't know if the mermaid had good or bad intentions, but he remains grateful for her intervention, believing that without her, he would have drowned. He affectionately refers to her as his sea mom, and hopes that she's doing well wherever she may be. I like that story, it's nice. There's actually a lot of stories where mermaids are saving people. So they don't seem to be so bad. And of course, let me know what you think of mermaids in the comments. Do you think they could be real? Or do you think people are mistaking something else for mermaids? Well, that is it for this episode. Here's how the painting came out. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.